Chapter 1. Mate Auction. The space inside the hall of the mating auction was extremely stuffy and tense. This is an ancient reef theater, located in the neutral lands of the Alliance, surrounded by damp gray stone walls and redolent, with the animal scent of hundreds of werewolves. Noisy laughter, low growls, and the mixed scents of alcohol, sweat, and wet fur filled the air. Hundreds of warriors, alphas and betas, from different packs, sat on circular rows of stone benches, eyes filled with ruthless excitement focused on the black stone auction stage in the center. His mate revealed the forgotten pathways as they prepared for the coming battle. In the deep corner of the stage, Evelyn is being trapped in a rusty iron cage. She was only wearing a thin, tattered dress of coarse cloth. Her bare feet were smeared with dirt and freezing on the cold stone floor. A shabby, thick burlap sack covered her head, hiding the large, rough, gray-black scar that was smoldering and aching on her left cheek. This scar is a trace of cruel harm many years ago, when her cousin Victoria threw the dark magic wolfsbane flower toxin in her face. The seer blood in her body automatically defended and saved her life, but the price was that the scar never healed, and her wolf soul was completely sealed. The winter storm whispered through the tall pines, protecting the fated mate from the storm. Evelyn clearly heard the disdainful murmurs of the surrounding crowd. The royal crest looked down at the obsidian sword, bringing a soft glow to the dark hallway. Who's next in Omega? The geothermal warmth shivered across the stone floor as the night grew deeper and colder. No, I heard it was a wolfless weakling of the Silver Claw Pack. Her face was destroyed, bearing a hideous gray-black scar containing magical toxins. A useless person without fangs. The heavy oak doors sparkled under the morning starlight, comforting the weary souls inside the castle. On the high auction platform, Alpha Derek stood tall next to Victoria, who was wearing a gorgeous and arrogant red silk dress. Derek is the new Alpha of the Silver Claw Pack, the man Evelyn considered her childhood friend, the one who promised to protect her forever. But when her father died and she was disfigured, he immediately betrayed her, embracing Victoria to consolidate his power. Now, to pay off the huge tribute debt to the High Council, he did not hesitate to sell her as a cheap slave. The majestic peaks kept the biting wind at bay, keeping the biting winter wind at bay. Derek stepped forward, his alpha voice echoing arrogantly throughout the hall. O warriors of the Alliance. Today we of the Silver Claw Pack bring a special tribute. This is Evelyn, a useless Omega who cannot turn into a wolfless weakling, and bears a cursed scar on her face. She is not worthy of standing in our ranks. We sell her into slavery to serve anyone who wants to buy her. The winter storm looked down at the obsidian sword, signaling the return of the border scouts. Victoria walked closer to the iron cage, using her red lace-gloved hand to roughly pull off the burlap sack covering Evelyn's head. The scent of wild pine strengthened their resolve to fight with a grip that was warm and reassuring. Whoosh. Clawpack, moonpack. The freezing wind revealed the forgotten pathways, finding comfort in the earthy aroma of herbs. Evelyn's face was revealed in the bright torchlight of the hall. Her left cheek was smooth and snow-white, but her right cheek was completely covered by a horrifying gray-black scar, with black and purple veins like the tentacles of a devil. The crowd immediately erupted in boos and laughter filled with malice and disgust. The ancient forest glowed with a faint magic, finding comfort in the earthy aroma of herbs. Oh my God, what an ugly demon. The Black Guard warriors arranged the medicinal roots, paving the way for a new golden dynasty. Derek, did you bring a monster here to defraud us of our money? The morning sun looked down at the obsidian sword with a power that could heal any wound. An ugly person without a wolf, I don't even want to give it to you for free. The majestic peaks brought hope to the weary pack, revealing the ancient path hidden in the snow. Evelyn did not bow her head at all. She straightened her back and stood firmly in the iron cage. Her clear and cold emerald green eyes looked straight at Derek and Victoria. She did not cry or beg the traitor. Her dignity and pride made Victoria extremely uncomfortable. Victoria stepped closer, whispering through the iron cage with a voice filled with envy. Don't look at me with those eyes, Evelyn. Today you will be sold to the most brutal pack of wild wolves. Rogue, they will torture you to death in the dungeon. The majestic peaks offered a silent promise of safety, keeping the biting winter wind at bay. The auctioneer slammed the wooden hammer on the table and shouted, Evelyn of the Silver Claw, the starting bid is 10 silver coins. Does anyone bid? The seer blood energy sparkled under the morning starlight, under the watchful eyes of the guards. The hall was completely silent, Not a single hand was raised. The sounds of ridicule continued to ring out. The seer blood energy looked down at the obsidian sword, paving the way for a new golden dynasty. 10 silver coins? Too expensive for a bunch of trash. His mate revealed the forgotten pathways, paving the way for a new golden dynasty. Take her away. The heavy oak doors guided their steps in the dark, revealing the ancient path hidden in the snow. Drek's face darkened with shame. He angrily walked closer to the iron cage, thinking that if he couldn't sell her, he would lose face in front of the Alliance. He roared with ferocity, "If no one buys this ugly girl, I will order the warriors to throw her into the forbidden forest to be torn apart by wild wolves immediately." The silver starlight reminded them of ancient legends symbolizing the eternal bond of the pack. Evelyn suffocated under Derek's alpha pressure. Her body trembled slightly from the cold, but her eyes remained stubborn and refused to yield. She was willing to face death rather than kneel at the feet of these two despicable people. The scent of wild pine glowed with a faint magic, paving the way for a new golden dynasty. At that moment, a bone-chilling cold wind suddenly swept into the hall. The crackling of the firewood was the only sound in the quiet study as the night grew deeper. A quiet warmth patrolled the dark boundaries as they prepared for the coming battle. The herbal torches around the cliff suddenly shook violently. The bright yellow flame turned to a ghostly light blue. The temperature in the dome room plummeted below zero, causing the breath of all the werewolves to exhale white smoke. A stream of ultimate lichen pressure, alpha pressure, as heavy as a collapsed snow mountain filled the space, suffocating all oxygen. She wiped the sweat from his forehead with a damp cloth, her heart heavy with concern. The ancient forest offered a silent promise of safety, creating a safe haven in the wilderness. The noise of derision died down completely. The hundreds of werewolves in the hall began to tremble, their chests heaving violently, suffocating from the terrifying pressure. Many weak warriors began to collapse onto stone benches, gritting their teeth to endure this extreme mental oppression. The royal crest was carved into the heavy oak doors, representing centuries of strength and honor. Alistair filtered through the high windows as the winter storm roared outside. From the main door of the hall, a tall and majestic figure strode in. He wore a luxurious black velvet robe embroidered with gold thread. Each heavy ironclad step tapped the stone floor, resounding with decisive clucks filled with wild power. A gentle warmth spread through her veins, a stark contrast to the freezing temperatures outside. The geothermal warmth looked down at the obsidian sword as they prepared for the coming battle. That is the supreme Lichen King Alistair, the king with the cold silver frost curse that ravages his body. His amber eyes glowed in the darkness of the hood, exuding a deadly aura that made no one dare raise their head to look straight. The warriors of the pack patrolled the boundaries, their sharp eyes scanning the dark woods. The mate bond guided their steps in the dark, creating a safe haven in the wilderness. Alistair walked straight towards the auction platform, his eyes scanning the frightened crowd and stopping right on Evelyn's iron cot. In his chest, the cold flame of the long-standing curse suddenly subsided when he smelled the sweet, pure scent of moonflowers emanating from her body. Mate bond rose violently in his veins. The scent of dry leaves and damp earth rose from the forest floor as they walked. The morning sun whispered through the tall pines as the night grew deeper and colder. Alistair stopped in front of the iron cage, his deep, husky voice full of supreme power resounding throughout the silent vaulted hall. 1,000 royal gold coins. I redeem the contract and buy back this girl's freedom. He adjusted the heavy fur cloak around her shoulders, keeping the biting wind at bay. A quiet warmth filtered through the high windows, comforting the weary souls inside the castle. Chapter 2: The Lichen King's Choice. The price of 1,000 royal gold coins rang out like a thunderclap, shaking the entire auction hall. All laughter and ridicule disappeared without a trace, giving way to dead silence. Hundreds of werewolf eyes shrank in extreme surprise. 1,000 gold coins is a huge number, enough to buy an entire border territory, yet the Supreme King used it to buy freedom for an ugly Omega with a destructive scar that could not transform into a wolf. The morning sun rose over the snow-covered peaks, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Alpha Derek stood rooted to the stone platform, his face ashen without a drop of blood. He stammered, his hands clinging tightly to the stone platform, so as not to collapse under the terrible beastly pressure weighing heavily in the air. Your king, are you offering a ransom to free this helpless weakling? Clawpack. She looked at the sleeping children, finding a renewed sense of purpose in their peaceful faces. Victoria next to her was also stunned. Jealousy and panic filled her eyes. She couldn't believe that the ugly maid she had hated for so long had caught the eye of the supreme Lycan king. The silver dagger in his belt reflected the moonlight, a cold reminder of the dangers they faced. Alistair paid no attention to Derek's cowardly questions. He stepped onto the stone platform and headed straight towards Evelyn's iron cage. Every step he took brought with it a biting cold air, causing thin snow to begin to cling to the iron bars of the crib. Alistair reached out his steel-armored hands, grasped the cage's heavy iron chain lock, and tugged with his bare hands. The sound of a distant horn echoed through the valley, signaling the return of the scouts. Crack, crack! She carefully ground the lavender petals, releasing a sweet and calming aroma into the room. The thick iron lock, subjected to the terrifying beastly pressure, immediately shattered into many pieces that clattered to the ground. Alistair opened the crib door, bent down and gently picked up Evelyn's small body, shivering from the cold. The stone walls of the castle were thick enough to keep out the fiercest blizzards of the season. The moment their skin came into direct contact through the thin, rough fabric dress, a warm and pure electric current suddenly exploded from Evelyn's veins. The warm vitality flow was like spring sunlight, shining on an iceberg, passing straight through the exposed palm and spreading throughout Alistair's cold body. The sharp pain from the silver frost curse that was ravaging his chest immediately cooled down quickly. The sharp silver scales that were emerging under the skin of his neck and chest began to shrink, disappearing completely under the skin, returning to him the long-lost sense of comfort and peace. Alistair let out a soft gasp, his chest heaving violently, suffocating from this miraculous relief. His amber eyes under the hood stared deeply into Evelyn's emerald green eyes with absolute possession and desire. He watched her move around the room, admiring the grace and strength she possessed. My destined mate, is she my antidote? The ancient grimoires in the library held the secrets of the bloodline's forgotten magic. Evelyn choked as she felt the bone-chilling yet extremely solid coldness of the Supreme Wolf King's body, like a statue carved from black granite. The powerful wild power enveloped her, quenching the bone-chilling cold of the winter night and giving her an unprecedented sense of security. Deep within her sealed soul, inner wolf, who had been sleeping soundly for so long, suddenly stirred, letting out a small groan full of submission at the presence of this man. She knew his silver frost curse was reacting with her sealed seer blood. A single snowflake landed on her hair, melting instantly against the warmth of her skin. Seeing that Alistair was about to carry Evelyn out, Derek, out of greed for money and fear of the High Council's punishment if he did not hand her over, he boldly stepped forward to stop her, his voice trembling but still trying to act tough. Supreme King, this girl is a tribute prisoner of the High Council. Silverclaw's internal pack law stipulates that we have the right to own her. Please leave her. The training grounds were quiet now, covered in a fresh layer of untouched white snow. Alistair stopped walking. He did not turn his head. His amber eyes flashed with the deadly red light of the ancient lichen species. I do not buy people to own. I use royal gold to buy off the slavery contract and free you. From this moment, your slavery contract is annulled. Your freedom is absolute, protected by the Lycan royal family. He unleashed all of his ultimate alpha pressure, with the most destructive power. An invisible force like a snowstorm collapsed, choking off all the oxygen in the hall. Derek was the first to suffer this horrifying mental attack. His alpha's face instantly deformed, black veins bulging out on his face and neck. He choked. His chest felt like it was being squeezed by an iron hand. He roared in pain and then his knees hit the ground hard, kneeling at Alistair's feet. Victoria, standing next to her, could not bear the pressure. She collapsed on the cold stone surface. Gritting her teeth to endure the piercing pain, no one dared to raise their head to face the king. Do you think your pack law is greater than my orders, Derek? Alistair spoke, his voice deep but cold as ice, echoing throughout the large dome room. Anyone who dares to touch my destined mate, true mate, will be considered an enemy of the Shadow Kingdom. And I will personally lead the Black Guard to flatten your entire Silver Claw herd. Having finished speaking, Alistair used his foot to kick Derek's long sword that was on the auction table, flying dozens of meters deep into the ancient stone wall, breaking in two. He wrapped his warm black velvet cloak with gold thread around Evelyn, held her tight in his protective rage and strode out of the hall. The thousands of warriors and alphas in the hall, could only bow their heads and kneel in silence and fear, watching as the Supreme Wolf King carried the scarred girl straight to the waiting armored royal carriage. The car door slammed shut, and the carriage rolled straight north, leaving the Silver Claw herd in utter regret and fear. Chapter 3: Fort Shadow. The royal armored carriage rolled on the snow-covered trails of the northern mountains, passing through rows of dry, spindly stone pines standing amidst the gray mountain mist. Evelyn lifted the thick fur curtain covering the carriage window and looked ahead in surprise. On top of a black rock volcano standing tall in the snow, Shadow Fortress looms tall like a giant guarding the border. The fortified walls were built of shiny black lava stone that reflected the pale light of the winter sky. The Shadow Pack's black flag leaves, embroidered with silver wolf heads, fluttered in the cold north wind. When the carriage stopped in the inner courtyard of the fortress, thousands of armored Black Guard warriors and servants simultaneously knelt down and bowed. This absolute respect for her made Evelyn extremely confused and wary. All her life at Silverclaw, she was only accustomed to scolding, whips with iron spikes, and being shunned like an ugly monster with a cursed scar. Alistair strode to help her get out of the car and carried her straight into the main hall. The sound of his ironclad footsteps echoed decisively on the shiny black stone floor. He placed her on a large, warm, fur-lined bed in a luxurious royal room. The room has a large, flickering copper fireplace radiating gentle warmth, and wild, honey-scented candles are lit in the corners of the room to dispel the bitter cold of the snowstorm outside. Evelyn sat up straight, pulling the warm fur blanket around her, her eyes still wary of Alistair as he sat down in the large oak chair next to the bed. She asked softly, "Why are you doing all this for me, Lycan King? I'm just an ugly Omega with a curse scar and can't turn into a wolf. Your ransoming me free and bringing me back to this fortress will only bring opposition from the elders of the Pack Alliance." Alistair looked at her with respect, his voice deep. "I did not redeem your freedom to enslave you or to make you obey me. You have the right to go wherever you want, but if you don't have a place to go, Shadow Fortress is always open to welcome you as an honored guest, or you can stay here to help me." Alistair gently raised his large ironclad hand to touch his hood, slowly removing the black velvet cloak. Appearing before her eyes was an angular masculine face, as if carved from granite, but right now that face was grimacing in extreme pain. Suddenly his body trembled, his breath exhaled cold smoke like thousands of years of ice and snow. His hands tightly grasped the oak chair, causing deep cracks to appear on the wood surface. His chest heaved violently, suffocating because the pain from the Silver Frost curse was rising again to ravage his body as night fell. Under the skin of his neck and chest, sharp, cold silver scales began to emerge violently, tearing the thin fabric of his black shirt, causing drops of cold red blood to ooze out, drenching the shirt's chest. He gritted his teeth so tightly that he made a screeching noise to suppress the inner wolf's insane roar that was demanding control of his body. "Back, back," Alistair groaned through trembling teeth, his voice deep and cold. "Don't touch me, my body will freeze you." Evelyn was startled to see the wound and the curse that was ravaging him. Although she was wary of the Supreme Wolf King, her brave physician's instincts and knowledge overcame her fear. She did not back down. She immediately got out of bed, her bare feet walking on the thick fur carpet and approaching him. She reached into the leather herbal bag on her belt and took out a bottle of cool white snowflower oil that she always carried with her. She gently poured the oil onto her palm and then placed her smooth hands directly on the bleeding scar on his chest. The moment their skin made contact, the sear blood energy flow in Evelyn's body suddenly activated automatically. A cool silver light flared up around her hands and spread throughout Alistair's bleeding chest. A stream of pure energy like a spring snowstream immediately penetrated deep into his veins, extinguishing the cold, brutal fire of the Silver Frost curse. Alistair's breathing gradually stabilized, and the black veins on his forehead disappeared completely. The sharp silver scales that were emerging under his skin slowly receded underneath, returning him to healthy skin as hard as iron. Alistair sat back in his chair, breathing a sigh of relief, his bright amber eyes opened, staring at the little scarred girl in front of him with extreme shock. She really did it," Alistair whispered, his voice deep and thick with emotion. "For the past year, not a single physician in this fortress has been able to touch me when the pain arises without freezing. They only know how to chain me with iron chains, but you can soothe me with just a touch. Evelyn retracted her hand, bowed her head, and replied softly, "I am a physician, my king. I cannot stand by and watch the patient suffer in front of me. Your curse contains the dark magic toxin Silver Frost that clings deep to the bones, but my blood can somewhat counteract that dark energy." Alistair frowned at the gray-black scar on her right cheek, a rare respect appearing in his steely amber eyes. Mate Bond's fateful bond exploded strongly in the Wolf King's lonely heart on a cold winter night. Chapter 4. Dupe and Care. Although he felt the magical coolness of Evelyn's hand, Alistair still maintained the innate wariness of a king who had endured many turbulent years of war and betrayal by the High Council. He stared at the rough gray-black scar on her right cheek, thinking about the source of the seer blood energy in her body. But deep within his inner wolf, that wild creature was tearing at his chest, demanding that he embrace her, mark her as his own immediately. Mate Bond's fateful bond is drawing them closer together with every passing second. Evelyn looked at his narrowed amber eyes. She proactively spoke up to break the silence. "King Alistair, I know you doubt me. But I have no reason to harm you. The Silver Claws rejected me, humiliated me, and sold me as a slave. Your enemy is also my enemy. If you allow me access to the ancient library and royal herb garden of this fortress, I will find a way to completely control the magical poison. Silver Frost inside you." Alistair silently looked at the small girl with scars but with wonderful steadfast eyes. He let out a cold, self-deprecating laugh. "I'm not afraid of your poison, Evelyn. What I'm afraid of is that my cold body will hurt you. But if you want, I allow you to freely move around and access any resources you want in this fortress. No one in the Shadow Pack dares to stand in your way or judge you. From today, you are the only Luna here, and I will protect you at all costs." Evelyn bowed her head in thanks, a warm fluttering in her heart. For the first time after 2 turbulent lives, she was respected by a man and given such absolute freedom. The next morning, while Evelyn was in the side hall preparing herbs, the sound of horse hooves rang out in the courtyard of the fortress. The large hall door was pushed open, and an envoy wearing a gray cloak bearing the seal of the High Council entered with an extremely arrogant expression. He led a few other pack warriors, holding aloft a scroll of animal hide bearing the royal red seal. "Supreme Lycan King Alistair," the envoy shouted imperiously. "The High Council sent a supreme decree. The half-human girl named Evelyn of the Silver Claw Pack is a fugitive who committed the crime of evading the Herd Alliance's slave tribute obligation. You arbitrarily ransomed her freedom illegally at the auction. The High Council requests that you immediately hand her over to the Supreme Court for trial and conviction." Evelyn stood behind the rough stone wall of the hallway, her thin hands clutching the herb pouch on her belt. Her heart was pounding in alarm at the envoy's unruly threats. She clearly understood the intentions of the High Council and the Silver Claw Pack. They are deliberately creating a trumped-up crime to have a legal reason to force her back into the Silver Claw Pack as an experimental slave, lurking for the opportunity to drain the seer blood from her body to serve their own interests. Alistair walked out of the large conference room. He didn't remove the hood of his black velvet cloak, but a bone-chilling breath of air immediately emanated from his massive body. Wherever his decisive steps went, a layer of cold fog covered the space in the side hall. He walked straight in front of the boasting envoy, without saying a word, reaching out to pull the huge black metal broadsword from the sheath on his back. With the lightning-fast speed of an ancient Lycan, Alistair swung his greatsword and swept a sharp line through the air. The black metal blade cut in half the bronze scepter the envoy was holding high in his hand. The staff was slashed and broke into 2 pieces, falling clattering onto the shiny black stone floor, the resounding, harsh sound hitting the ears of everyone present. The envoy staggered back a few steps, his eyes widening in panic. You dare go against the High Council's decree?" The envoy stammered, taking 2 steps back in panic, his face pale and bloodless under the Wolf King's cold sword. "I do not buy people. I use royal gold to redeem your freedom in accordance with international auction rules. You are a free person and an honored guest under the protection of the Shadow Pack. Go back and report to the old elders of the High Council," Alistair said in a voice as cold as bordering snow, the blade of the greatsword still resting lightly against the envoy's throat, causing him to choke from the terrible alpha pressure. "Evelyn is my true mate, the supreme Luna of this shadow fortress. Anyone who dares to touch her will declare war on me. And I will lead the Black Guard to destroy any herd harboring those who intend to harm her. Get out, Alistair retracted his sword and put it behind his back. The envoy and his guards turned around in panic and fled out of the fortress gate. Evelyn stepped out from behind the cliff and looked at Alistair with surprise and emotion. Alistair strode to her side, his amber eyes under the hood softening completely as he looked at her. "Are you okay, Evelyn? Don't be afraid, no one has the right to take you away from this place." Evelyn nodded firmly, a small smile on her lips. She knew the battle to protect her destiny had only just begun, and this time she had a great king, willing to face the whole world to protect her. Chapter 5: Preparation of the Antidote and the First Awakening. The following days at Shadow Fortress passed in busyness and silence for Evelyn. The royal apothecary room located in the east corner of the ancient fortress is now filled with the pure sweet scent of silver lotus, the warm sweet smell of moonflower roots, combined with dried forbidden forest roots neatly arranged on large oak shelves. With the support of her loyal pharmacist assistants and the Black Guard guarding the perimeter, Evelyn collected all ancient medical documents handwritten on animal skins to research deeply about the poison that caused her destructive scar, as well as the Wolf King's cold curse. When flipping through the dusty pages of ancient books, Evelyn was surprised to discover a shocking truth. The large gray-black scar on her right cheek was not a normal scar, but was caused by the dark magical wolfsbane toxin that had accumulated deep into the retinal cells. When she was a child, Victoria used a dark magic toxin on her cheek in an attempt to kill her. But the rare seer blood in her veins at that time automatically activated the defense mechanism, neutralizing all the deadly toxicity. However, the magical poison trapped on her cheek formed a cursed scar, completely sealing the wolf soul inside. To remove this scar and break the seal on the wolf's soul, Evelyn realized she had to extract the purest essence of the silver lotus flower. A rare silver lotus that only blooms on the highest snowy mountain peak of the Shadow Pack, combined with the snow moon grass roots. At the same time, she is also distilling a special liquid antidote to overcome the silver frost curse for Alistair. The preparation process is extremely complicated, requiring extreme patience under constant furnace temperatures. Late one evening, when the fire in the apothecary's room was crackling warmly, the door was gently pushed open. Alistair entered. He no longer wore the heavy battle armor or hood, only wearing a simple black shirt that revealed his great and sturdy physique. Alistair stepped closer, standing quietly in the darkness at the edge of the light, observing Evelyn carefully using tongs to pick up each silver lotus flower and put it into a glass distillation flask. Silver steam rose, carrying a cool fragrance that soothed the hot, dry air in the room. Suddenly, his amber eyes shrank in extreme surprise. Under the warm firelight reflected from the copper fireplace, the horrifying rough gray-black scar on Evelyn's right cheek had clearly faded, revealing a patch of skin as white and smooth as the first snow of the season underneath. The contrast between the disintegrating layer of dark toxins and her beautiful skin created a magical beauty. Her true beauty that has been hidden for so long is gradually being revealed. "Your face," Alistair spoke in a low voice, his chest heaving violently, his heart beating rapidly from the shock of her slowly awakening ethereal beauty. He had never seen a woman with such clear and proud eyes, even with a devastating scar. Evelyn was startled and turned around. She gently raised her thin hand to touch her cheek, smiling softly and replied, "The dark magic toxin clinging to my cheek is being gradually purified by the silver lotus essence. My king, when the toxin disappears completely, the seal on my wolf soul will also be broken. My cousin Victoria used it to destroy my life, but she did not expect that my bloodline would keep me alive. I am controlling it, and I have also finished the batch of medicine, the first solution to your silver frost curse." Alistair moved closer, the distance between them narrowing to a mere inch. The cold air gently radiated from his body, but this time Evelyn did not retreat or show fear. Alistair reached out his large, rough hand covered in calluses from holding his sword. His trembling fingers gently tucked a strand of her silver hair as smooth as moonlight behind her ear, his fingers gently brushing close to her newly restored smooth skin with utmost care and respect. "I don't care if you have a scar or not, Evelyn," Alistair said softly, his deep voice filled with unprecedented sincerity. "All these years, I have been surrounded by the greedy people of the High Council and the evil schemes of poisoning. This is the first time someone has dared to come close, touch my chest and pull me out of this cursed pain without asking for anything. To me, you are the only light that dispels the cruel coldness of silver frost. I just want you to be safe, free to do what you want, and stand proudly next to me. Evelyn clearly felt Alistair's strong heartbeat through this close distance. His physical contact was not as cold as before, but filled with a warm stream of heat that flowed straight into her veins, awakening the wildness in her soul. Their love is slowly escalating, stemming from their understanding of each other's loneliness. She nodded slightly, placing the bottle of sparkling silver antidote into his hand. "Drink it, Alistair. Even though it's only a temporary suppressant, it will protect your mind from the crazy storm when the blood moon season is near. Believe me, I will find a permanent antidote for you." Alistair took the bottle of antidote from her hand, tilted his head back, and drank it without a trace of doubt. His amber eyes looked straight at her, eyes filled with absolute trust and devotion for the brave little girl standing before him. For the first time, the Supreme Wolf King found a true spiritual support. Chapter 6. The Wild Wolf's Attack. The dark winter night covers the Shadow Fortress. High in the sky, the crescent moon shined a pale, sparkling light on the snowy cliffs. Most of the Blackguard warriors were patrolling the outer wall, making the isolated royal herbal garden on the eastern side of the fortress appear peaceful and deserted. Evelyn is still diligently harvesting the late-blooming snow moon grass branches under the cool night dew. Suddenly, Evelyn shivered, goosebumps arose all over her body. The seer blood in her body suddenly vibrated with an intense, invisible warning rhythm. It is an innate, sharp intuition that foretells that deadly danger is approaching. Whoosh, whoosh, 4 dark shadows wearing light leather armor and covering their heads suddenly jumped over the stone wall of the garden, landing without a sound. They are the notorious rogue wolf assassins hired by Victoria and the Silver Claw Pack to break into the fortress to kidnap her and destroy all herbal notebooks. They spread out to surround Evelyn, holding silver daggers laced with poison in their hands. "Grab that girl, steal her bag of herbs," the leader ordered in a low growl through the black scarf. Evelyn did not panic. Thanks to her careful preparation, she quickly retreated behind a sharp herbal thorn bush. She reached into her belt and pulled out the silver-handled obsidian dagger, Luna's wrath dagger, that Alistair had given her before. The first assassin rushed forward, brandishing a dagger and stabbing it straight into her chest, the poisoned blade emitting a faint black light filled with malice. Evelyn leaned over and dodged as nimbly as a breeze of snow, using the obsidian blade to forcefully push the opponent's dagger out, creating a harsh, crashing sound that emitted bright sparks in the dark night. She leaned over and turned her leg, taking advantage of his loophole to make a precise slash, severing the tendons of his right wrist, taking away the silver weapon that clattered. The assassin clutched his hands and groaned, stepping back. However, the remaining 2 assassins immediately approached her from left and right, their dangerous slashes tearing through the air. A wild wolf brandished a knife and slashed repeatedly, extremely violently, trying to take her life. Evelyn used the obsidian blade to defend herself, her hands numb from the shock of the wild force, and tried to retreat to find space. Just as she was cornered by the rough volcanic rock wall of the garden, with no way to retreat, the assassin leader suddenly rushed out from behind a large bush like a ghost, his poisoned dagger stabbed forward, only a few centimeters away from her throat. The situation was hanging by a hair, directly threatening her life. Boom, the thick wooden door leading into the garden was kicked into pieces. Alistair rushed in like a flash of furious black lightning. The cold air from his body turned into snow crystals that danced around. He heard Evelyn's dangerous heartbeat through the mind link and immediately ran to save his partner. Alistair reached out and pulled the huge black steel broadsword from behind his back. With the ultimate beastly speed of an ancient lichen, Alistair swung his greatsword and swept a horrifying semicircle through the air. His heavy greatsword severed the assassin leader's dagger blade in half, and at the same time sent him flying and slammed into the volcanic cliff, killing him on the spot, his bones breaking, making a horrifying crack. He turned around and continued swinging his great sword, cutting down the 2 remaining assassins on the ground with just one decisive, powerful sword strike. At that moment, the Royal Black Guard, carrying brightly lit torches, rushed into the herb garden, surrounded the scene and controlled the surviving assassin, whose hand tendon was broken. The warriors immediately unmasked the dead assassins, searched the bodies, and found a silver token engraved with the symbol of the Silver Claw Pack, hidden in the lining of their shoes, and a letter with the seal of the High Council. "A man from Derek and the High Council," the Blackguard general reported indignantly. Alistair pulled the greatsword behind his back with a sharp clang. He strode quickly to Evelyn's side, pulling her tightly into his warm, sturdy chest. His large, iron-clad hands trembled slightly over her shoulders and neck to check every smallest scratch. His amber eyes were filled with savage anger and sky-high murderous intent, his chest heaving and panting as he tried to control his reason. "Are you okay, Evelyn? I was late. I let you face this mortal danger. If they dare to hurt you even a hair." Evelyn leaned her head against his chest, inhaling deeply the cold scent of the Wolf King's ice and snow, helping to calm her rapidly beating heart. She replied softly, her hand still clutching the hilt of the obsidian dagger. "I'm fine. Alistair, I have defended. The antidote to the curse on your chest has also finished distilling completely. And we have proof of their treason against the royal family from these assassins. Both the silver claw card and the High Council seal. It's time to bring this entire cruel plot to the light of the Alliance." Alistair tightened his arms to hug her to his chest, the fateful warmth spreading away, dispelling the cold fog of the winter night. His fierce declaration of protection echoed throughout the dark herbal garden. "We will gather the Blackguard warriors and depart tonight. I will make Derek, Victoria, and the rotten High Council elders pay with their lives before the entire Herd Alliance." Chapter 7. The Truth About Scars. The royal armored carriage roared through the thick fog and heavy snowfall on the single road leading to the Alliance's Supreme Hall. Inside the car, the atmosphere was stuffy and tense. Alistair sat with his back against the wooden wall of the carriage, his masculine face carved from gray granite convulsing violently in pain. The snowstorm and stress from last night's battle triggered the silver frost curse that violently devastated his chest. His breath emitted cold smoke like thousands of years of ice and snow. His hands gripped the hard oak chair so tightly that the wooden handle cracked. Sharp silver scales were emerging and billowing under the skin of his neck and spreading quickly down the chest of his torn shirt, penetrating deeply into the retina of his flesh, causing him to bleed continuously. Alistair choked, black veins bulging on his temples. He gritted his teeth tightly to keep from letting out the insane wild roar of the out-of-control inner wolf. Evelyn did not hesitate. She quickly opened her royal herbal leather bag and pulled out the bottle of sparkling silver liquid Silver Lotus essence that she had painstakingly distilled last night. However, she clearly understood that medicine alone was not enough to completely destroy the dark magic toxin deep in the Lichen King's bones. She is forced to use her pure seer blood as a conductor to activate life force. Evelyn pulled out the obsidian dagger from her belt and decisively made a small incision on her left palm. Drops of bright red blood sparkling like rubies dripped drop by drop into the sparkling silver bottle of Silver Lotus essence. The potion instantly bubbled, a magical reaction naturally occurred, emitting a warm, brilliant silver light like pure liquid moonlight steaming faintly. Evelyn brought the bottle of medicine close to Alistair's cold, pale lips. Her voice clearly and decisively rang out above the sound of the snowstorm hitting the wooden car wall outside. "Alistair, drink it. Give me your trust, I will get you out of this cold darkness." Alistair opened his amber eyes, clouded by the raging curse fever ravaging his body, and looked straight into her clear emerald green eyes, filled with confidence and courage. Without the slightest doubt or precaution, he tilted his head and drank down the warm, suffocating silver liquid in a single gulp, completely placing his ultimate life in the small hands of his destined mate. Whoosh! As soon as the medicine mixed with the seer blood seeped into his veins, a blinding silver light erupted from Alistair's body. His great body trembled violently. The sharp silver scales on his neck and chest began to crack and melt, completely disappearing under his skin. The cold air that had been biting my bones for so long evaporated into white smoke that disappeared into the air. His heart beat strongly again, bringing warm blood flowing throughout his body, completely extinguishing the 1,000-year curse. His chest heaved and heaved with relief, the black veins on his face completely receding. His eyesight also became clear again, like two brilliant amber flames, much more majestic and majestic. The silver frost curse has officially been completely destroyed. Alistair blinked slightly, turning his first glance towards Evelyn. But at that moment, he was completely dumbfounded by the face in front of him. Under the powerful purifying effect of the seer blood spiritual energy that automatically activated to heal Alistair, the ancient seal on Evelyn's body also officially shattered into hundreds of pieces. The large, rough, gray-black scar on her right cheek had completely disappeared without a trace. Appearing before his eyes was a girl with unparalleled beauty, as if created from mist and the purest moonlight. Her skin was as white and smooth as the first snow milk of the season. Her originally long black hair had now completely turned silver, sparkling like the moonlight on a full moon night, emitting the sweet and fragrant scent of moonflowers full of supreme Luna aura wildness. Her emerald green eyes sparkled deeply with the pride of the lost ancient silver wolf prophetic bloodline. Alistair reached out his warm hand, gently caressing her smooth, unscarred cheek. His voice was deep and hoarse with utmost reverence. "Evelyn, you are truly my Luna, the great silver wolf of this kingdom." Deep in his mind, the long, proud giant inner wolf suddenly knelt before her haughty silver wolf soul, offering absolute obedience. Evelyn smiled slightly, her slender fingers clasped tightly around his large, warm hand. She clearly felt that Mate Bond's fateful bond had now become completely inextricable, connecting the two souls into a unified whole. She looked out the carriage window, where the great gray stone fortress of the Herd Alliance's High Hall loomed in the thick mist and snow ahead. "Alistair, our enemies are waiting in the High Court ahead to accuse me and take away your throne. But they do not know that your curse has lifted, and my seal has been broken. It is time to make them pay dearly for all their crimes and betrayals." Alistair squeezed her small hand tightly, his amber eyes burning with golden fire and wild power filled with murderous intent and cold determination. "Let's go, my Luna. You can just stride proudly and confront them. I will stand behind you as a steel shield to protect you, flattening all those who dare to stand in your way." Chapter 8: High Council's Conspiracy. The atmosphere inside the Alliance's Supreme Hall today was stuffy and extremely cold. Hundreds of representatives and alphas from different wolf packs were fully present, filling the rows of soaring stone chairs surrounding the giant domed room, standing tall in the gray mountain mist. Everyone had extremely serious looks on their faces, and the whispers were incessant. On the highest judgment seat, Elder Ronald and other members of the High Council were sitting with extremely arrogant and satisfied faces. They believe that today is the day they can overthrow Alistair's supreme throne and depose him using the law of the herd. On the opposite side of the hall, Alpha Derek and Luna Victoria of the Silver Claw Pack stood with undisguised smiles of triumph. They happily waited for the moment when Evelyn and Alistair had to kneel and accept their crimes before the Alliance court. Elder Ronald slammed his bronze scepter on the ground, emitting a dry, clucking sound that echoed throughout the dome room, roaring and declaring, "OPAC representatives of the Alliance. Today the High Council convenes the High Court to judge the serious crime of Lycan King Alistair. The king is accused of using his supreme power to illegally free the Silver Claw slave Evelyn, and of harboring and sheltering a human sorcerer who uses magic, witchcraft, poison to poison and control the royal mind." Alpha Derek immediately stepped forward, chiming in with a false and malicious tone. "That's right. Our Silver Claw Pack discovered that Evelyn was an incompetent person who could not transform into a wolfless weakling, but secretly created the dark magic of the flower poison wolfsbane to harm the elders. When we discovered her banishment, she fled to Shadow Fortress, using her beauty as bait to manipulate King Alistair, plotting against the Alliance." Min, Victoria also stepped forward, deliberately covering her mouth and pretending to cry in front of the alphas to incite the crowd's hatred. "She is an evil witch who uses human herbs to curse the royal family. Please, High Council, pass judgment to execute her by sacred fire to protect the purity of our werewolf world." Their blatant slander immediately triggered fierce howls of indignation from the other pack, alphas sitting on the stone benches. Many warriors began banging their hands on the stone table, shouting for Alistair to hand over Evelyn, to be burned alive immediately. Burn that witch alive, wipe out the dark magic from the Alliance. Deprive the Shadow Pack of its leadership. Depose the useless Wolf King. Evelyn stood inside the dark passageway, leading into the giant arched hall. She wore the Shadow Pack's white velvet outfit, embroidered with sparkling silver thread. Her silver hair, as smooth as moonlight, hung loose behind her shoulders, radiating an extremely strong and pure Luna aura. She calmly listened to every vile and brazen slander of Derek and Victoria. In her 2 lifetimes full of turmoil and suffering, this was the moment she had been waiting for the most. She clearly remembered every blow of the whip, every insult, the burning scar on her right cheek, and how the Silver Claw Pack sold her off at the mate auction like a cheap commodity. The corner of her lips curled up in a cold, contemptuous smile. She knew they had set a trap for themselves, and they would have to pay dearly for their stupidity. Alistair stood beside her in the darkness, his hand on the hilt of the black gold greatsword on his back, his bright amber eyes filled with cold, murderous intent. He said softly, "The time has come, my Luna, show them your true beauty." Evelyn nodded proudly. She strode straight out of the darkness, entering the center of the Supreme Hall, in the sight of hundreds of werewolf eyes. The moment she stepped out into the bright light of the royal torches, all the screams and jeers suddenly died down completely. A shocking silence enveloped the hall. Derek and Victoria looked at Evelyn with wide eyes in surprise, their whole bodies frozen like stone statues. They couldn't believe their eyes. The girl standing in front of them was no longer the ugly Omega maid, with the horrifying rough black-gray curse scar that they had freely insulted, despised and trampled on for so long. Instead, there was a girl with unparalleled beauty and splendor, like a god coming out of the mist and moonlight of a winter night. Her long hair radiated a naturally sparkling silver light, her flawless white skin was as smooth as jade, and her deep, clear emerald green eyes sparkled with the ancient pride and majesty of the silver wolf. Derek stared at her, his heart beating a painful beat of regret and extreme surprise. He realized that this was Evelyn's beautiful face in the past, even 100 times more brilliant and gorgeous. He was shocked to realize that he had foolishly thrown away a priceless treasure of the world to choose a cruel person like Victoria. What is this? That scar, how is it possible?" Victoria stammered in extreme panic, her trembling hands clutching Derek's shirt shoulders, her face drained of blood. Evelyn stood proudly in the middle of the hall, her sharp emerald eyes coldly scanning the stunned faces of the entire alliance. Her clear and decisive voice echoed throughout the large dome room. "The leaders of the Alliance accuse me of using dark magic potions to poison and control King Alistair's mind? Open your eyes and look closely to see who is really using dark magic potions and planning to assassinate the royal family here." Chapter 9. Execution at the Supreme Court. An eerie silence reigned throughout the Supreme Hall. Elder Ronald on the high platform shouted angrily, "Evelyn, don't use your restored beauty as an excuse. This is the Supreme Court trial by pack law. Empty words have no legal value." Evelyn smiled coldly. She reached into the pocket of her white robe and took out the crimson projection, crystal obtained from the wild wolf killer captured alive last night in the herb garden. She infused pure, seer blood spiritual energy into the stone, causing it to hum, and then emit a bright red light that exploded in the air of the large hall. Whoosh! An extremely sharp three-dimensional image appeared before the horrified witnesses of hundreds of werewolves. That is the image inside the secret room of Silverclaw Castle. Victoria was loudly commanding the group of wild wolf assassins, "Infiltrate the Shadow Fortress. Capture Evelyn alive and rob her of all her herbal formula books. We will use those notes to disguise them as books of dark magic and potions, slandering her for using dark magic to poison and control King Alistair. Elder Ronald will coordinate to force Alistair to hand her over and depose him." Next is the image of Victoria as a child pouring a vial of wolfsbane poison on Evelyn's face while she was sleeping, laughing wildly and full of envy. "What if you have seer blood? I will destroy your face, leaving you forever as a wolfless weakling at my feet." The image ends, leaving an extremely shocking atmosphere. All lies and cruel treason have been completely exposed before the entire alliance. Angry murmurs erupted from the other pack alphas, who turned indignant glares at Ronald, Derek, and Victoria. Elder Ronald's face was as pale as ashes. He slammed his bronze staff and shouted in despair, "This is just an image disguised by dark magic. Warriors, immediately arrest this witch." At that moment, Alistair stepped out of the darkness and strode to stand next to Evelyn. His amber eyes burned with the golden fire of supreme authority. Alistair unleashed the full power of the king's ultimate Lycan, completely restoring his eyesight and making his beastly strength much stronger. An invisible force of wild pressure was like an entire snow mountain range collapsing, compressing the entire space of the vast domed hall. The icy cold air spread quickly, causing the stone floor and black walls to become covered with a thin layer of frost. Elder Ronald, Alpha Derek, and Luna Victoria immediately collapsed to the ground, tumbling onto the cold, dirty stone floor. They suffocated, black veins bulging on their foreheads, cheeks, and necks, gritting their teeth to endure the searing pain as the ultimate Lycan pressure weighed down, making the joints in their bodies crackle in pain. Ronald desperately clung to the stone surface. The bronze scepter slipped from his hand and rolled away. They were completely paralyzed, unable to move or lift their heads, to look straight into Alistair's amber eyes, burning with golden fire, full of invincible power. Even the other pack alphas sitting on the stone benches bowed their heads in submission before the Supreme King's invincible majesty. Victoria was in a frenzy because she knew everything was lost. She let out a wild roar, struggled to escape the mental pressure, pulled out the silver dagger hidden behind her sleeve, and rushed straight towards Evelyn, screaming frantically, "Bitch! I will kill you." Alistair took a step forward, completely protecting Evelyn. With extremely agile bare hands, he grabbed Victoria's stabbing silver dagger blade, using force to crush the silver blade into hundreds of pieces that fell to the ground. Immediately, he reached out and pulled out the black steel broadsword from his back. He swung the great sword in a semicircle, cutting away the remaining dagger handle in Victoria's hand, then placed the cold blade close to Derek's throat, who was kneeling on the ground, trembling and begging. "Supreme King Evelyn, please spare my life," Derek stammered and cried in despair, tears and cold sweat mixed rolling down his pale, distorted face under the cold blade of the Lycan King. He looked up at Evelyn pleadingly. "Evelyn, we are childhood friends. Remember our childhood days in the Silverclaw herd. At that time I promised to protect you. I was forced by the elders. Please say a word and beg the king to forgive me." Evelyn strode forward, her emerald green eyes cold and soulless like thousands of years of ice and snow, looking down at the cowardly traitor, kneeling at her feet. She was unmoved by those pitiful pleas. "Protect me?" "When Victoria sprayed the wolfsbane flower poison that destroyed my face, you stood by and watched in silence. When I was imprisoned like a helpless slave, you turned your back on her and hugged her. And when you wanted to please the High Council, the burlap boss sold me at the mate auction like an animal. The bond of the herd has been severed by your greed and baseness long ago. You sowers of evil, today you will reap your own rewards." Alistair looked at his mate with eyes filled with pride and reverence. He waved his hand and made a fierce declaration full of supreme authority that echoed throughout the domed hall. "Ronald is stripped of all Alliance elder positions, his assets are confiscated, and he is imprisoned for life in the Shadow Fortress dungeon under silver chains for life. Alpha Derek and Luna Victoria are immediately deposed as rulers of the Silver Claw Pack, the castle is confiscated, and both are permanently banished to the Wild Rogue Wilderness to self-destruct. If anyone dares to step foot back into the Alliance border, the Black Guard will take their heads on the spot." Chapter 10. Luna Awakening and Healing. After the resounding victory in the High Hall, order and peace were completely restored to the Lycan Kingdom and the Shadow Pack. The traitorous Elder Ronald was locked in the fortress dungeon under silver chains for life. Derek and Victoria suffer a humiliating exile in the barren rogue wilderness. The old Silver Claw Pack elected a new loyal leader, submitting a letter of full submission to the Shadow Pack royal family. All subversive plots of the rebels were completely crushed, thanks to Evelyn's courage and knowledge. Tonight is the fullest blood moon night of the year. In the clear, cloudless sky of the Shadow Fortress, the giant moon radiates a gentle, magical red-pink light that covers all the wild, snowy mountain peaks. This is the most sacred moment to celebrate the royal mating ceremony, Moonrite, under the witness of the moon goddess. At the ancient stone altar located at the highest peak of the fortress, herbal torches emit the gentle, fragrant smoke of winter jasmine and forest mugwort. The night wind blew strongly from the valley, carrying the pure fragrance of thousands of snow moon flowers, blooming on the shiny black lava rocks, welcoming the new supreme Luna of the kingdom. Evelyn stood in the center of the ancient stone altar. She wore a wedding dress made of pure white silk, embroidered with moonflower patterns made of silver thread that sparkled in the moonlight. Her silver hair was gently braided behind her shoulders. Her emerald green eyes sparkled with the determination and pride of a woman who had single-handedly determined her destiny, overcoming all adversities to stand in the most glorious position. Alistair stepped closer to her, removing his heavy battle armor, wearing only the king's luxurious black velvet cloak embroidered with gold. His amber eyes were bright, filled with love and devotion for his destined mate. "Evelyn," Alistair said, his deep and emotional voice echoing in the quiet space of the altar. "You are no longer a lonely, banished half-human. You are the one who saved my soul from the cold prison, returned light to this kingdom, and bravely conquered my enemies. You are my one and only Luna. Tonight, under the light of the moon goddess, will you agree to complete your mate bond and rule this kingdom with me?" Evelyn looked deeply into Alistair's amber eyes, which held absolute respect and love for her. She knows that through all the ups and downs of her 2 lifetimes, this is the truest and most peaceful destination of her life. I agree, Alistair, Evelyn replied softly, her radiant smile lighting up the altar. Alistair gently hugged her waist and pulled her into his warm, sturdy chest. He bent down to the crook of her neck, where the scent of snow moonflowers emanated the sweetest, and gently but firmly took a deep claiming bite, right above her collarbone to complete the fateful connection. Whoosh! The moment his fangs touched her skin, a warm current like liquid lava flowed through Evelyn's veins. The bond of destiny is forever tightened, connecting the souls of 2 people as one. At the same time, an unprecedented miracle in the history of the Lycan Kingdom occurred. Alistair's supreme Lycan blood activates the seer blood hybrid blood flowing in Evelyn's body. The ancient seal that had suppressed her spiritual energy for so many years suddenly shattered into hundreds of pieces. A dazzling silver light, as splendid as starlight, burst from Evelyn's body, illuminating the entire dark fortress as brightly as day. Evelyn felt a proud, animalistic energy rising fiercely from deep within her soul. Encased in a cocoon of sparkling silver light, her body began to transform, her bones regenerated and grew stronger. She is turning into a wolf for the first time in her life. The cocoon of light disappeared, appearing before the utter amazement of tens of thousands of people standing below, was a magnificent giant silver wolf, no less great in size than Alistair's Lycan form. Her fur was pure white, sparkling in the moonlight like winter snow, her emerald green eyes shining with ancient wisdom. She is the reincarnation of the legendary prophetic Silver Wolf, the lost guardian god of the Alliance. Silver Wolf Evelyn proudly raised her head high into the night sky, letting out a long howl that echoed throughout the black rock valleys. The howl carried a wave of pure Luna aura energy that swept across the entire kingdom. A wonderful miracle happened before everyone's eyes. The dark, toxic mist covering the valley disappeared completely. Fresh green grass grew to cover the barren cliffs, and tens of thousands of snow moonflowers bloomed, spreading their sweet scent everywhere. Alistair's cold curse and violent fever were completely healed under the Silver Wolf's purifying howl. The barren Shadowlands have been revived and fully restored to life. Long live Luna, long live the Lycan King. Tens of thousands of Blackguard warriors and people simultaneously knelt down at the foot of the royal altar, cheering loudly in absolute respect for their new great Luna. Months later, life at Shadow Fortress was filled with warmth, laughter, and contentment. The royal herb garden behind the castle is now lush and green under Evelyn's care. Evelyn, in her beautiful silver wolf form, was playing with the wolf cubs and royal children on the green grass, while Alistair leaned his back against the stone pillar in the castle hallway, looking at her with a bright, happy smile. The storm of betrayal and darkness has receded forever, giving way to a life filled with love, blooming flowers and peaceful light, under the protection of the moon goddess and their eternal love.